What is going on, everybody? It is Gold and Blue Dude here with you again. If you haven't already, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button because I make college football videos every single day. And when college basketball comes, I'll do that as well. So, I gave out my spread pick with the Miami UAB matchup. And I took Miami to lay the 14. The number actually crept up right before that game was played to Miami laying 15.5, and they still covered. So, Golden Blue Dude is 1-0 against the spread. Well, now it's time for the big boys. Now it's time for Saturday, so that means multiple games, multiple picks against the spread. So this is where the rubber meets the road. So the first game that I'm going to pick is going to be the Syracuse North Carolina game. Look, I expect North Carolina to contend for the ACC championship, but giving them 23 points, that is just too many points in that first game. I don't think Syracuse is going to be any good, and I don't think it's going to be a competitive game, but I don't think North Carolina is going to beat Syracuse by 23 points or more. So I'm going to take Syracuse and those 23 points, and we'll see how Sam Howell does in his first game in his second year. So the next game, another ACC game, Duke and Notre Dame. And this is the same premise. I actually think Duke will be better than Syracuse this year. Notre Dame is laying 20. I'm going to take Duke and those 20 points. I still think Notre Dame will dominate this game. I just think that 20 points is too many points for that first game. We saw that game last night, UAB against Miami, and Miami was a way better team than UAB, but they beat them by 16. Now, they laid 14, and it crept up to 15.5, and I still laid those points, but didn't cover by much. So, if that's the precursor for these first games, then I'm going to take Duke and those 20 points as well. Then the next game is another ACC game. I know. This week is going to be ACC, Big 12, and a few non-Power 5s. SEC doesn't start till next week. So next there's Western Kentucky and Louisville is laying the 11.5 points as of right now. I'm going to take Louisville, and I'm going to lay the 11.5. I think Louisville is going to be a top 5 team in the ACC. I don't think they'll contend for the title, but I think they'll be a top 5 team with maybe 2 or 3 losses. So I think they'll beat Western Kentucky by at least 2 touchdowns. So I'll lay those 11.5. I'm not going to sweat it too much either. Next game, on to the Big 12. UTEP against 14th ranked Texas. Texas is laying 43 against UTEP. No thank you. That is way too many points. Yes, I think Texas is going to spank UTEP, but not by more than 43 points. 43 points or more. No. Give me UTEP and those 43 points. And UTEP looked halfway decent in their first game. But I still think they're going to get slobber knockered by Texas. Just not by 6, more than 6 touchdowns. No. Next game. This is a little bit closer of a line. University of Texas at San Antonio at Texas State. And they're giving Texas State 6.5 points. I'm going to take Texas State and lay those 6.5 points. Look, last week Texas State lost to SMU, but they were a 25-point underdog, and they only lost by 7 points. They put up 416 offensive yards and 24 points and held SMU to 31 points. So I think Texas State wins this game by at least 10 points. So even a touchdown would cover this spread. So I'm going to take Texas State and those 6.5 to cover. Next game is going to be a revenge game. Coastal Carolina at Kansas. Now, last year, Kansas lost to Coastal Carolina 12-7 in a weird, ugly game. So, this year, the line is Kansas by 6.5. So, as long as that line stays at 6.5, I'm going to take Kansas, and I'm going to lay those 6.5 because I think Kansas will have revenge on their minds, and I think they'll be better than last year. Not by leaps and bounds, but I do think they'll be better, and I think they beat Coastal Carolina by a touchdown. So if that line creeps up to a touchdown, that's when I'm going to not play that game because that's when it comes, too close for comfort. But as long as that line stays at 6.5, I'll take Kansas. Then the next game, very, very interesting pick. Charlotte at Appalachian State, and Appalachian State is laying 17. So Appalachian State, they do have Zach Thomas, who is the best quarterback in the Sun Belt, and it's not even close. They have a great offensive line, and their best wide receivers are back. Now, last year they were 26th in total defense, but they lost 5 of their 6 best tacklers. Now, for Charlotte, last year they led Conference USA in rushing. They lost their leading rusher, but they got transfer from Northern Illinois, who could be a 1,000-yard rusher this year, and all their major wide receivers are back. I think they'll score a lot of points. So I'm actually going to take Charlotte and the 17 points. I think App State is still going to win this game, but I don't think they're going to win by no 17. They could win by 2 touchdowns, not 17. So I'm going to take Charlotte and those 17 points. Next up is Arkansas State and Kansas State, and Kansas State is laying 12.5. I'm going to take Kansas and actually lay those 12.5. Look, a lot of people are looking at that Memphis game that Arkansas State played and was like, man, they played that game tough. They lost 37-24. Memphis is under a first-year head coach, and I think Memphis is not going to be good as they usually are. So don't let that score fool you. I think Kansas State is a much, much better opponent than Memphis. That's why I'm going to take Kansas State, and I'm going to lay those 12.5 points. I think Kansas State wins by at least 2 touchdowns, and I'm not even sweating that, really. So the next and last game, and I'm going to mention 2 games not to touch and why I'm not touching them. But the last game that I would play is Tulane at South Alabama. Tulane is super hard to predict. Last year they started 5-1 but finished 1-5. And they do get quarterback Keon Howard back, but he lost his best wide receivers, and that defense is very, very shaky. If they don't score a ton of points, then Tulane, they're not going to win. And South Alabama played a very, very good game last week. They beat Southern Miss, who I thought was a better team than South Alabama, to the point that Southern Miss's coach quit. So, in this game, I'm going to take South Alabama and those 10 points. I think Tulane can still win this game, but I'm going to take those 10 points. I think South Alabama will at least keep it close. And now the 2 games that I am not going to touch. And the first one is Clemson at Wake Forest. Clemson laying 33 points. Look, I think Clemson is going to blast Wake Forest. But man, 33 points is a ton of points. But at the same time, Clemson can put up a ton of points and has beaten Wake Forest very, very convincingly the past couple years. And Wake Forest doesn't have Jamie Newman. And that's why I'm 2 back and forth for that. I think Clemson will dominate that game. But 33 points could be too many points, but it might not be enough points. So I'm staying away from that game. The next game that I'm staying away is Georgia Tech at Florida State. Florida State laying the 12.5. I do think Florida State does win this game, but Florida State is bad as well. But so is Georgia Tech. Is 12.5 too many points? Is it not enough points? I don't know. That's why I'm not going to play it. I'm going to wait till after this game to see what Florida State and Georgia Tech look like to actually make a play on any of their games. So there you go. Gold and Blue Dudes play against the spread. So far, I'm 1-0 against the spread because I picked Miami to lay that 14 points. And the line even crept up to 15.5, and they won by 16 points. So I'll take it. We'll see what happens. Like and subscribe if you haven't already. And I'll see you on my next video.